In this video, I will be talking about episode 7 of the 4th season of The Handmaid's Tale, and the episode is called Home, simply because June has returned home to Canada in the episode, and pretty much all of the episode, the majority of it at least, is taken up with her adjusting to being back and all the different emotions she has. The mood of the episode in general is really somber, which I think is sort of fitting. And again, one of the strong points of the show is the psychology and obviously how personal this stuff is to June, and they really capture that very well. It sort of freshens things up for the future of the show moving forward. It's the sort of solid trend that we've had the last few. Obviously, Elizabeth Moss again does a really great job in conveying what June's feelings are, and I guess the most striking point is the end of the episode and where she ends up, because it sort of takes the whole of the episode for her to have this confidence and for her to feel like she's coming back to normal. But the way that comes about is in a very disturbing sort of twisted Handmaid's Tale kind of way, and that's with the encounter with Serena when she finally confronts her, and it's a reversal really of the power dynamics that we've had in Gilead, where she gets to be the one with all the power and she gets to flaunt it over her. But even in that scene, it's very sort of disturbing how far June goes to, even though you can justify it in what Serena has put her through. But she does go to a very dark place, really badass line, which is because Serena again in this episode is playing the whole sort of religion card, and there's a scene where she's praying, don't punish my child for the sins of his mother, obviously referring to June, and she's still playing up that whole angle. I think what's striking about that is then I think she probably believes it deep down inside. But in any case, the stuff with June really hits hard. But the line I really like is when Serena says, God brought me back here to redeem myself, or for redemption, and June just comes back with, well, I brought myself here to tell you just how much I hate you, which I think is such a badass line. But yeah, then she obviously really goes into her and grills her, and just this really amazing, powerful scene. Great acting from both, not just Moss, because of how intimidating she is, which shows what a fine actress she is, because obviously for so much of this show she has been the more intimidated style one, with obviously a lot of grit and guts, but she's had to be the sort of smaller character and not so much had these big dominating moments, and she's absolutely terrifying in this scene. But also the Von Suratsky as Serena Joy, she actually manages to sell the situation and how frightened her character is as well. It's visually, it's such a great scene. Where maybe June goes a little bit too far is Serena's baby, and there's a line about, well, when he ends up dying prematurely inside you, you'll finally know some of the hurt you've caused us over the years. And you can kind of see the sentiment and where she's coming from, and obviously it's very hard to care about or sympathise with Serena, but at the same time, yeah, that was maybe going a bit too far, the harshness of it, and talking about an unborn baby like that. But in any case, I think what strikes me about it and what happens in the next scene is that June goes to see Luke, and it's the first time in the episode where she feels comfortable around him again, and she initiates sex basically, and he hesitates, says, what are you doing? I mean, is this right for you? And it's sort of this power dynamic again where she's actually really aggressive in having sex with Luke, and again she feels empowered because of what happened with Serena in that scene. So it's kind of notable then it took that scene with Serena. It took her going to this really dark place to feel comfortable with Luke, intimacy-wise, and to maybe go a bit too aggressive with Luke. So I think that sort of sums up some of what The Handmaid's Tale is about in the show, where it's almost saying this is what Gilead did to June, where she needed this moment with Serena to then get confidence, but then even in that confidence, a bit aggressive in having sex with Luke. So it's sort of a mixed bag, like emotional wise in some ways, but it's definitely disturbing in its own way, but also obviously empowering. But it tells a nice little story over the course of the episode, because there's a scene earlier in the episode where June meets up with like Emily and with, well, Emily's child, with Maura and a bunch of other people. Rita's there as well, so it's a big like sort of get together and they're sort of very defiant, because Rita mentions about Serena asking her for help and kind of like fuck her, and at one point Emily says, talking about Aunt Lydia, she can't get us here, and then Moira says, you know, none of them can get us here, and it's this big triumphant sort of moment, and you can tell in the tone and in what June is saying that she still has these mixed feelings, where she almost feels bad about being home and having this new sense of freedom. There's some great scenes with Luke as well, because what the episode gets across is their intimacy, just how tough it's going to be for June to get back to normal properly with Luke. And I'm not just talking about sexual, you know, stuff. I'm talking about just being in a room with him, having a conversation, doing normal couple things. It might also be the stuff with Gilead, with her having love for another man. I think that's probably in the back of her mind. But yeah, it's just the literal of, well, how do I connect to this person after all this time? And she obviously has a certain amount of regret about not bringing Hannah home. And there's actually a scene where she tells like a sort of a white lie about what she told Hannah and when she saw her, and that she doesn't mention the stuff about Hannah actually not really remembering them, and that she's in her own ways sort of settled and happy in Gilead. She doesn't mention that stuff, so that's almost like a little white lie to protect Luke's feelings out the episode. Then June is uncomfortable and still getting used to Luke and being around him again. A scene where Luke wants to be alone with June, and Moira decides to go shopping to sort of leave them alone, but clearly June doesn't feel comfortable staying behind with Luke, and so she asks if she can go shopping with Moira. The scene visually as well, because there's like little moments in the supermarket where June is back by all this freedom. You know, there's like comments about Chris being like more healthy and stuff like that, like head around, because obviously in Gilead they don't have that stuff, and she's been away for ages. And also being in a supermarket in Canada with freedom, because obviously the supermarket experience with her as a handmaid in Gilead was very different. Fred comes to Serena at one point and actually tries to win her over again, and tries to convince her that we should work together for the sake of both of us, because he points out, and he's possibly right, then the game has changed now with with June being back in town, because she could potentially make life very hard for both of them, and if she did give testimony, it could kind of screw both of them in the episode. Because of what happens with June, she does have a change of heart, and the actual end of the episode is her coming around and saying, yeah, let's do this together. And that's like contrasted with June giving testimony to Sarita as a very underhanded, sinister type woman who would do anything to get her own way and manipulate people. So the scene to really talk about is the one with Moira and her girlfriend, because because of what went down with June and the whole stuff, and she points out that because of them picking June for the foreseeable future, do rescue missions or anything like that into like Gilead and send aid there. You picked your friend over me, and you picked my work over me. Picked it over the work, not just my work, but your work as well. And she's actually quite reasonable about it. She says, I don't blame you. I know where I stand now, and that's kind of a good thing. But she pretty much, in so many words, says that this is the end. We can't really do this anymore. But by the end of it, Moira sort of talks her into like having a conversation at a later date. And I mean, in Moira's own word, a fight. She says, yeah, we need to have this out. We need to have a fight. So she talks into having that conversation at a later date. So that was another sort of nice, smaller scene, which was well handled. And they do have like a good sort of dynamic. And I think because of all the things Moira has been through as a character, you're like rooting for her as well, and would like her to have a normal sort of relationship with this woman. It's the Handmaid's Tale for the week. And just to talk about something else on the channel, something newer again, and I've been reviewing this Icelandic show called Katla, which is a Netflix original, of that coming up, and obviously more Handmaid's Tale next week. So thanks for listening, and goodbye.